Yeah. Yeah, so I was working with the that was the dean, and it was Frank and Christy and is there one named Beth? Okay. Who was Beth? Okay. Which I always remember because
Did you drive up this morning, Ryer?
She did.
No, I stayed up here last night.
Yeah, that'd be kind of.
I made it easy on myself. It's doable.
Yeah, I left the house at 6 to make sure I get here.
Yeah, I started doing the math and said, you know what, just let me one other hotel room. It's traffic.
so like of that is just that's still working.
Yeah, so Beth is still there. Christy's our dean.
Right.
And then Christy's so right.
Okay. So that makes sense. And that's you all. Okay. So
I was wondering if you were coming. Thought I would drive. Yeah, well, that's right. I like this neighborhood. It's kind of cool over here.
And then is that it? And so you're Tacoma. And what's the
Yeah, telephone one always takes time.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Mixed up that she still has mortgage, but now I don't know. Okay. And then it's just say two close between
I keep saying
I saw you talking to her. I can't remember if I could. No, the person, I thought you were talking to the woman with the 122.
And I was like, or saying like 3 times, and I was like,
Oh, that's
I
not
don't think anybody really knows.
I've talked to her.
And I went to
Can I just this?
Sorry. I went to one presentation. I went to Annie Jones' presentation on usability, and then I learned from
People go around
my friend at Michelle, who basically like implemented Alma, like was there.
Yeah, so what's going on with your electronic resource access?
And Jennifer, who's
I saw your note this morning that well, I didn't read it closely enough. I don't know if it's the election level records.
Yeah.
But that won't affect the portfolio. It's been so much watching, but yeah, there may have been the start of that thread, Shireen's original question, I think.
If you haven't already, there's food and coffee over there. So, and you can eat it over here.
We're out of the discovery system. Nobody really knows. They asked who's in charge of discovery.
And it would have been published. I mean, the thing about your publishing job, that I mean, in those environments right now, the jobs are going to be pretty much disabled. So,
I thought that might.
yeah. But if the course reserves were in there in migration, and we're pretty good at some record.
And I confirmed that
Not yet.
a particular title is in Alma associated with a course list. But when we search by the title or the course review, it's nothing that happens.
Right. So we can learn this year.
But I'm about to.
Yeah, I feel like the collection a little bit. It's all. Now we have this structure in place for doing it. All you're looking for is licensing a database is totally different.
My staff is getting used to starting to do
There's this whole workflow. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
Oh.
That's where it, you know how it fell down off the bridge?
No. I saw it. Oh.
Yeah, I do.
No, I can fix this right now.
Acquisitions.
Although, I mean, there's a lot of infill I had to find my way along in okay, there's a closer to town.
Oh.
Put that in the spring. I think I'm better.
Yeah, that happened last year. So we're still in it's
But not, then I wasn't the one that was.
You guys have a library out here?
Well,
So I only help
yeah.
no.
Unless you try to do this, we're not doing it. Because right now, we've got a situation. I just realized the recent comment base camp about the proxy not kicking in when you're off campus. That Sheree may have just put that there this morning, but I realized, I pointed out, I don't know if you saw it, you guys in your accounts, your user accounts, all don't have a campus unless you and that will impact when you're off campus.
Okay, so we should.
Yeah, I set Shereen's, like set your campus for the records or for the user records that you're testing. It shouldn't matter off campus because the inventory groups will be driven by IP. But when you're off campus, it will, yeah. And you also, when you're off campus, you have to be logged into the thing to even get access.
Right.
So.
This is the.
No. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're good. Prior to simulcasting or something.
You're live on the internet.
Was that you? I thought. Did you send out an email that you were going to try to do that? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah. I waited till the last minute because my first early tests were like, oh, this isn't going to work. And then I had a brainstorm. I was like, okay, using another device.
We did our Alma Primo training 2 weeks ago, and he's one of our staff. He's one of our key staff, but he's part-time for health reasons, and he just can't do a full 8-hour day. We set up because the Seattle colleges have Skype for Business now, and we have my work laptop. We thought, well, let's try it and do a Skype session. And the very first day we found out that, first of all, when you point your little webcam at a computer screen or at a projector, you can't really see anything once the room lights go down. So we learned that. And we also learned that at least at North Seattle, we cannot run a Skype session over Wi-Fi at all. The audio ends up sounding like some 1960s art film score.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So the second day we had to move the session to the instructor workstation, which had a wired connection.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want people depending on it when you're in some strange, new to you space, unknown Wi-Fi.
It is. I know.
I mean,
Laura or Ryder, did you guys start that sign-in sheet around?
Absolutely.
I want to see.
well, I have really old writers and just one. Well, I was just about, oh, this is older.
There are a lot of college. Yeah.
I ripped it. I didn't even ask. You know what I mean? Like, privacy.
So she would.
Are they
I'm not surprised. I don't think they're going to work. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Someone said, oh, she's not speaking. I thought I would hold on to this. So I oh, thank you.
Oh, wow. Where's the camera? On computer. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now
Wow.
It was horrible. It was horrible. I couldn't recycle my glass and my plastic bottles. This is the thing. Next time it's September, I'm gonna have to like leave room in my suitcase so that I can bring stuff home. In Seattle.
yeah, you can't not recycle.
Right.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I can tell you where the system. I had to go around the block. I need to, because you can't make a left on it.
Okay, I've never heard. So.
But I'm here only for this. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all right. A lot of us are coming, so, you know, some of it all of those.
It's hard. I want to stay seriously. I've won.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I like this. A friend now.
Yeah, I'm Karen Fernandez. I think I've heard of you. Yeah.
How many years?
Good. That is my No, it's all right. Well, no, but on my side. And we've had Primo for a while, so.
All right, well, I think we can go ahead and get started. How you guys doing? I feel like I'm gonna use that. Can you guys hear me okay? There's a sign-up sheet going around. If you would just sign your name and your institution. Just, I don't know if I'll do anything with it, but it'd be nice to know who came. What I'd like to do is start by having us go around the room and introduce ourselves, and maybe talk a little bit about just a few sentences or a minute or two what your
what your role in your library, what institution you're at, what your role in your library is, kind of what you're doing with Alma now, what you would, what you would like to talk about today, this morning, and we can kind of gear our conversations towards. I have some slides put together. I don't know if they're going to be appropriate for what we want to talk about. I kind of want to hear from you guys first to see what it is you're thinking about Alma and Primo and the consortium. I think you guys know I'm Wade Guidry. I'm Library Consortium Services Manager. I've been in the group about, 8 or 9 months now, since July, and started shortly before Cohort 1 went live and was on board for Cohort 2. And of course, we're currently doing Cohort 3. I think we've got a mix of cohorts here, and I think we'll see that when we go around the room. But Laura, I know you, so I'll let you start.
Okay. Hi, I'm Laura Staley. I'm from Renton Technical College. We were in Cohort 2. What we are hoping to collect some information on is we're looking at the demerit system in Alma to deal with our people who are using reserves. And we're looking at terms of use questions, and we're looking at creating local collections. And I'm happy to see you all.
So you said demerits, TOUs, and local collections. Yeah, you might have to explain to me what the demerits are. I don't remember that. Ryer?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryer Banta at Centralia College. I've been leading the implementation. We are a Cohort 2. I came into the project about not halfway through, but somewhere where it was already moving along. And it's gone pretty fine overall. And I don't think I have any big things to learn here. Well, I have lots to learn. Lots to learn, but I don't have a specific agenda like Laura's.
Now, just to go back to Laura and to you, Ryer, you guys are institutional leads, and I mean, from what I understand of what you guys do, and this is one thing I'd like to learn from you guys, is kind of, and we can learn from one another, how libraries are organized staffing-wise around Alma, because I think Alma introduces new tensions and new workflows and staffing models, and library just have different headcounts in different departments. And my sense is that both Laura and Ryer are sort of generalists. Ryer, I know you work as a reference librarian as well as, well,
yeah.
If you want,
Yeah, I mean, I do reference instruction. I mean, we pretty much have 2 librarians. I do it all plus anything technology related.
And then you have a person who does your technical services and circulation manager, sort of their functional lead for both. What's her name?
Correct. So we have a woman named Jesus Albright, who she's luckily been with us for about 25 years, has tons of institutional knowledge. She manages the circulation students, does kind of copy cataloging type stuff, manages all the circulation type duties. She's got her fingers into ILL and that type of thing as well.
Oh, yes. Laura, do you want to go back to you? I didn't give you a chance to talk a little bit about organization.
All right. Well, Renton Tech, we have a library. We have a full-time equivalent of 6. So there are 7 of us. We my title is media librarian, but honestly, that kind of covers everything but books. So I'm the person who deals with electronics and things like that. I'm in charge of the LibGuides. I'm in charge of Alma and Primo and things like that. So, small staff, lots and lots of varied duties.
And so, I mean, are you the policy configurator for like fulfillment?
Yes. Basically anything to do with configuring and managing and training Alma, that's me.
Okay.
Kirsty, yeah.
So I'm Kirsty Thomas. I'm the Library Technical Services Manager for the entire Seattle College's district. So people ask me, which Seattle College do you work for? And I say, All of them. All of them. And I have no favorites. Yeah. So I just got back from Luna where I was hearing from a lot of other libraries, and I came to the conclusion that we're a large institution that is staffed with a small institution. Everybody has that experience, I think. I'll let the library faculty talk a little bit about what they do. From the staff end of things, our staff are also doing a lot of work across the board. All of our acquisitions work, ordering and receiving, is done by staff who also work at a circulation desk. And at several of the campuses, that means like their desk is right behind the circulation desk. So part of what we're trying to do with the Alma Primo migration is, or at least part of what I'm trying to do with the Alma Primo migration, is try to reduce some of the load that my staff have to carry with manually managing things, and try and free up their time so that they can support students better, rather than trying to, I have to support students and I have to do all this manual clerical work on other stuff. So that's a big goal of mine. We're in cohort 3, and we are right now at the point where we're in our test environment, and we go live July 13th.
And special mention about Seattle. There's sort of a consortium within a consortium. Right, it feels like they're trying to do a couple of different things during the migration, which has changed a little bit about how they're organized.
Yeah, they're
around the ILS at least. And
there's some times when we like to act like one institution, and there are other times when we like to act like 3 institutions.
I'm Esther Sunday from South Seattle College, and I'm just helping out with the e-resources part and working with the e-resources librarians, the technology committee at our district to make sure that the e-resources are working properly and that we can access them and view the articles.
And so are you the point person at South Seattle for activating collections in Alma and the PCI? I realize you're in implementation, so it's all new, but is that kind of what you guys are picturing? Or
PCI is Pamela.
Yeah. The user experience group is in charge of the PCI.
And is the user experience group for all campuses, or is
No, there's one person from each campus.
Okay, but it's you guys are doing it collected centrally, sort of with representatives from each.
Yeah, and we're doing it by committee.
Yeah.
And Katie's the Primo lead, but there's also one person at each campus. Ola Mumford at North.
Because remember, one Alma, 3
Primos.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wait, I thought Shireen was North.
So
she's Alma.
So she's our functional lead for electronic resources. And one of the other things that's going on with our migration is, up until now, all of our e-resources have been managed via, basically via Excel spreadsheets. We do have Serial Solutions 360 Core, but it doesn't provide any direct linking. Yeah. It's just we own this thing kind of thing. So part of fun is we're figuring out how do we manage the workflow of e-resources, who needs to activate them, who needs to order them, who needs to track subscription, who needs to track connection problems. And the issue of like proxy and connectivity is falling on Sharon and Esther and Shireen.
One of the things that I didn't ask people to point out, but I can point out where I think of it or remember it. Like many of you or some of you were on Primo and SFX before you did the migration to Alma, so you have some history with that electronic workflow. I don't think SFX, I've never worked with SFX, but I think it's a little bit similar to Alma. How actively you used SFX before migrating to Alma, but I mean, Seattle's coming from an environment much like yours where, you know, we didn't have an SAE, we didn't have anything electronic resources. So this is like brand new implementation for electronic resources for you guys to expose them at that level alongside your local catalog, which is, I mean, that's a big sea change for staff and for patrons. I mean, it's hopefully a good thing.
I think so.
But yeah, you start finding out as you guys have how you're going to, I mean, Primo makes that stuff findable, so you're going to find linkage problems and access problems more readily than you would managing it in serial solutions. If you guys found out there's a lot of drift in your serial solutions. Activations first, what you have. Let's go with Lindsay.
I'm Lindsay Keevy from Lower Columbia College. I am the only full-time faculty librarian at Lower Columbia College, but we have 2 adjunct librarians, and then we have 2 paraprofessionals who are full-time who are actually leading our Alma Primo implementation. So they know everything about it, and I've been helping with whatever they need help with, like filling out the workbooks. So, and I'm also our web editor, so I've been, you know, I'm going to be helping, you know, publish some our Primo and get all the links and everything, APIs and that kind of stuff, and I help kind of communicating with IT also. So here to absorb.
Yeah, and I want to welcome Lower Columbia because you guys are very new to this stuff. Lower Columbia has not participated at all in Orca, and they weren't on Voyager before. They've actually been sharing their ILS with Longview Public Library, Horizon Capital. So it's quite,
libraries, so.
So yes, it's quite different. Yeah.
Yes, to split. Yeah.
And how long have you been at Lower Columbia? Just
since September.
Okay, so you're new. Were you in a library? Are you just out of library school, or were you?
Kind of. Yeah, I worked at a university in a different kind of position.
Okay. Which Northwest University or?
No, California.
Okay.
Cal State.
But you weren't involved with libraries down there?
No.
Because they're doing it, yeah. CSU is doing a huge Alma migration.
Are they?
Yeah. So that's a
I'm
whole.
not surprised.
All right, thanks, Lindsay.
I'm Sharon. I'm at Seattle Central. I'm part of Primo with Katie and Pamela and Zola. And I'm part of eResources with Esther and Shireen. And I guess I went through the Voyager migration way back. And,
99.
And I'm bringing a little bit of that big, you know, the context of migration for reference and instruction, and a little bit of systems. So I feel like my role on both of those is to make sure we stay connected, we keep talking with each other because they're so related, Alma and Primo. Yeah.
And you're so good at that.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, some of you were participants in the Orca Consortium, so you'll know one another. Seattle, correct me if I'm wrong, but Seattle was not part of Orca, but was running Voyager.
Right.
Yes.
I didn't mention or I didn't ask, but Laura, you've been at Renton for a while, right? Ryer is, like Lindsay, fairly new to his institution. Off the top of my head, I can't remember if you guys were in Orca. You must have been on Voyager because you were a cohort. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize. And I apologize if it seems like I don't remember your names when I've met you before because I talked to so many people and that's why I'm trying to. I'll get there. Go ahead.
I'm Katie.
Katie.
You can forget.
North. No.
I'm at Seattle Central.
Okay.
And we are in cohort 3, as my colleagues told you. And I am the Primo functional lead, but also have been nosing completely into e-resources because, as I suspected very early on and have learned, can't really do Primo without understanding electronic resources and the activation of electronic resources in Alma. And
and she went to Illumina with lots of cool information.
Oh, yeah,
So we're
that's-
gonna make sure we.
Well,
put it
that's
to
an
good
interesting
use.
thing that I learned at Uluna, like, after about 10 minutes. Well, no, it took longer. So I went to all these sessions and I was like, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. After learning where total care, which doesn't actually mean total care at all, it means
No care.
1/10 of the care. You can't do, so I spent a week learning about cool things that I can't do in our system, which is really a head scratcher for me. And I wish, was anyone involved with LLC when they were having the conversations about purchasing this product? I mean, I'm just
So what
curious, like-
happened was that Ex Libris came to the state board with a contract, and the state board came to LLC and said, we've got this deal on the table. Do you want it or not?
And they said, sign me up.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
this is interesting.
yeah, I can say a couple words about total care. I mean, I think it was probably smart to start off the contract as total care customers, because if you open up, you know, the whole PBO box, and maybe those of you who are at Illuna saw that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. I'd have to talk to you more specifically about what you saw that you feel like were locked out of because of total care, because there are institutions with, you know, in-house, like in-library web developers who do all kinds of crazy stuff that you have to build that's not necessarily out of the box Primo. So some of that may be what you saw. We'd have to talk more about what some of those things are, but.
The Orca libraries that were on Primo, were you all total care? Would that, okay. I just, because I know that Orca Primo contract was a big problem.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the Orca libraries have been on Primo, but I don't think they got the kind of implementation project that we're doing now. So it was sort of, and that's my impression. And you and Orca did the same part. But let's continue.
Yeah, I'm Karen Fernandez from Highland College, and I'm an electronic resources librarian and reference librarian. And back in 2013, we implemented Primo and SFX. I was involved in that. And we're in and I want to learn more about the new UI and being able to customize that. And I'm co-lead on that with Marco. And let's see what else. I do LibGuides too.
I'm Nalpali Suda. I started at Highland in fall 2015 as an adjunct librarian, reference librarian, but somehow I was interested in systems, so I kept pushing. I want to be involved, and this April I switched to a position called Technical Services / Systems Librarian Coordinator. So, but then that means I kind of missed all the implementation. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. I just used the whole intricacy of implementing. So I'm kind of catching up, and right now I'm really trying to focus on the acquisition workflow, because I'm now I'm at the head of the technical services, and for a long time after the go live day last July, we haven't been really ordering, and then after this year started, we kind of started doing it. So we're still trying to learn, and if anyone could share, anything in acquisitions area, that'd be great. And also so Jerry is the lead.
Right. Yeah.
The cohort lead, and she's in charge of Alma, and then Karen is in charge of Primo. So I'm kind of sort of supporting both. So I'm butting in for everything. Yeah, so I'm interested in learning more about the e-resource activation process. Like you say, we're still trying to figure out who does what, because Karen's electronic resource librarian, but the acquisition, what we do in acquisition determines the course of the whole cycle, so it's really, you can't really separate one part of the Alma or Primo for that matter anymore. So I think we have to really look at more holistically, and that's what I'm really here to learn about the work.
Yeah, and just to put a plug in for Renton, I think you guys are hiring right now, aren't you, Laura?
We are hiring a library coordinator cataloger.
Which Naoka, as she talked about her job, that made me think of the job description that you guys have out there.
Yeah.
And just to mention, the cohort 1 institutions, you guys may be aware of this, went live on the older version of the Primo UI. Version that cohort 2 went live with and that cohort 3 will go live with was not ready at the time. So that's actually a project that's going on for cohort 1. It's implementation of the new Primo UI, and we've been talking about that. The cohort 2s don't need to be involved in that. So next week we're going to meet at Highline to help these guys get implemented. And it's something, for those of you who are eLuna, you probably heard libraries talking about, when do we go to the new UI and how do we go to the new UI? And maybe, I don't know if Leslie I don't know if you got a chance to go to one of those, Leslie, but
I did. I went to 3.
Yeah. Oh, good. Because that's a big topic within the Alliance right now, because they've been on Alma and Primo for a while, so they're on the older UI for the most part. I don't know if anybody in the Alliance has gone to the new, but if you look at the Alliance website, they've got a lot of working groups on that stuff. So.
Yeah, this will be my 3rd time migrating to Primo since 2014. That's awesome.
Where was the first one?
Well, the first one was Primo with Orca, and then the second was the second.
Oh, all right. No, the new UI. I see. Yeah.
And then this is.
Well, the new UI is more of a facelift.
So I'm Leslie Caldwell. I'm the Systems and Instruction Librarian at Pierce College. So I do Alma, I do Primo, I supervise tech services. I am the collection development librarian, LibGuides website, and then reference and instruction. So that's my job. And we were cohort 1, which could have gone worse. I think that we're doing it, right? So, and Bellevue too. So, things that I'm working on right now, I'm creating a local collection for EBSCO ebooks. That's one of the sessions that I also went to in eLuna about how to use OCLC World Shared Collection Manager to import ebooks into Alma, because the community zone for EBSCO is not reliable, and it isn't in PCI, the best option. And it's just kind of interesting that the whole PCI Alma community zone local collection stuff is something I've just been really digging into for the last month or so, trying to figure out, because I super duper broke it and put 1 million books into our catalog that we didn't own. And literally 1 million, I'm not exaggerating. Yeah, so and then it took them 3 weeks to get those out. So
and then I promptly deleted the other ones.
Yeah. So, if anyone's interested in that, I feel like by the end of this quarter, I'm going to be an expert, because it's just been trial by fire. So, yeah. Was I supposed to say anything else?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I remember Kate.
Yeah.
I got that right.
I'm Kate. I'm currently at Washington. Cohort 3. I was actually at Selby when they were initially going through it, so I just entered this position in July, so I was warned that this was coming, and I've been doing many things along with this. They're basically 2 faculty librarians, and we're kind of heading it because there are 2 of us. We have one very part-time tech, but she is been talking about retirement for a while, but she knows a lot about the current catalog, so she's been really helpful in terms of knowing what the data looks like now, and so we can try to figure out how that should look in all and there. But we're doing all the things, plus Alma being on top of it.
And you have Jonathan, is he full-time?
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems quite good. I talked to him at the training, he seems like he's picking up stuff. And yeah, I just, for those who go at Lake Washington Tech, they're new to this whole, to the consortium, to at least in the ILS sense, they've been running Fall at Destiny. And I'm not sure for how long, I don't remember how long you've been at LW Tech.
Just since July.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But
So that's,
that I think has been there since the 80s.
yeah, so that, I mean, that's, yeah, they're kind of, moving into the fold, so to speak, with the other, with the other CC libraries, and also migrating the platform. And they also have had director changeover because Rick stole their previous director, so.
Very happy. So just the one thing I would really be curious to hear more about is the community in there, because we've got, if we can streamline students' access to books or the articles that they need, that would be really valuable. And I think I figured out, but I have that fear of pulling in a million things that aren't actually what students can access. So that is what I'm hoping to get out of this particular day. Other than that, the answers to all the quizzes for the certification.
I can give you a tip on that.
Okay.
If you look at the review questions at the end, I mean, it's almost verbatim or pretty close. I mean, you still have to read and do some analysis, because they might flip from a negative to, this thing needs to not be this, or this thing needs to be, but it's, the certification test is not there to get people to fail. So, yeah, so I mean, if you to the review questions at the end of the session, even cribbing them on a single sheet before you take the test. I mean, that and it's all, of course, it's all open book, so you can, during the test, you can pop those open.
There's just a lot going on. It's like, yay,
Yeah.
Not just any videos.
I know.
They're deep in schmoil.
Oh my God!
Of course.
Of course.
What?
Just kind of puts me to sleep.
Oh.
There.
He sounds so happy. Like he's gonna be a clown.
Sally Sheedy from WACTCLC figured out there's a way you can play it at 1.5.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh! If you're watching the video, play it at 1.5 and speeds it up. Shade off those minutes.
A little on helium.
And I forget, does he or she have an accent?
Yeah, no.
Well,
Like an accent
Not
to
much.
As an accent?
It's not bad. No, I don't think.
That's a, yeah.
It's not bad.
It's not that that's a bad, I mean,
It's just slow, even,
Very
calm,
Yes.
drawn out in order to tell you about.
Then it can't be a New York accent if it's that slow.
Oh, are you
Maybe
kidding? Have you heard
they
Larry
recorded it
Silverman?
at 0.5.
Have you heard? Sorry. No, Larry, you can have a New York accent that goes.
because I mean, Ex Libris is based in Israel, right? So a lot of the videos you watch, you get used to listening to different accents.
I'm Heather Newcomer. I'm at Cascadia College and UW Bothell, so they were cohort 1. I was actually a graduate student working at Suzzalo when they went live. And so I'm a temporary librarian there now, and so I'm assuming that my future the University of Washington. So I figured I'd better get a better lay of the land because the University of Washington's collection is so massive and the Department of Pamela is so big that this is more for my own personal edification, hearing what's the concerns and what I need to know more about, because it's going to be advantageous for the institution that I go to work at eventually.
Yeah. So those of you hired, because I mean, as you may know, Aaron, some of you may know, unless I'm mistaken, your campus is actually part of UW's Alma instance. So you're actually work in the Orbis Cascade Alliance.
We have one Primo kind of, but then it's also separate. So it divides things out. So it's kind of a an interesting.
How long have you been working there?
I've been at UW for this is the end of my second year.
Okay, yeah, because gosh, I can't think of her name, used to like head circulation there and then went to.
Shell Bachelor.
Yeah. Did she move up again? Because I saw UW was hiring what I thought was her.
She's actually in Seattle,
Yeah.
Seattle at this point.
Yeah, because I saw UW was hiring for.
Interlibrary loan.
Yeah.
Shell's position. What they're hiring for.
Yeah.
UW is hiring for the head of access and reference.
We had that one Shell's position.
Yeah, last year.
Paula, right.
Hi, I'm Paula Lane from Bellevue College. I do technical services. I'm on the Alma Primo implementation team with Nicole Longpre and Shinhong Pu. Shala Rohani was also on our committee, but she has retired, so we'll miss her. Yeah. Cohort 1 this year is mostly just trying to function and get things done. It doesn't have to be pretty. We're learning how to fix mistakes. I have a blow-up clown outside my office named Alma for punching. Truly I do. And there are some things about Alma that I really love, and there are some things that are supremely frustrating. But,
Well, Paula may be modest, but I know that Paula knows quite a bit about acquisitions in Alma now.
oh, well, kind of, sort of. I mean, we're limping along, and I guess I'm doing some things that other people aren't doing. So, because Jerry and George came to see me over the break. And, also, I really was excited about analytics, and I still am, but it's really different than with Voyager, because with Voyager, if you get like a weird result, you can look at the tables, you can look at the data, and you can't do that in analytics. It's like behind a veil. So, and I don't know, what the ER diagrams or the relations between the tables, and so it makes it a lot harder in a way.
We've got Voyager Analyzer in addition to Voyager Access Reports right now, and Voyager Analyzer and Analytics, I think, are the same product. It's third-party software that Ex Libris has licensed to sit on top of the database.
And sometimes stuff that you think from a field will give you what you want. It's just a lot of trial and error, and it's kind of hard sometimes to figure out if you have the right data result.
One of the things that I'm really looking forward to, like after we go live, is trying to get some groups together to work out analytics with each other.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I told you that.
Yeah. Any questions? Anything? That's us.
What's happening in Great Harbor College?
I'm streaming to about 4 people.
I feel like we're just sort of in fixing what's broke kind of mode, live and dealing, but it's going okay, I guess. So I'm the only full-time faculty librarian, so I do reference and instruction and collective development, and so we're small, so I do circulation when there's nobody else standing there and just kind of everything. So we have some of our things that drive us crazy. Well, there's a lot of us, but it's when we're trying to do something in Alma and we're like, I need to fix this or change something. And it's like, well, do I click here? I clicked 14 places and I can't find it. And then I found it somewhere. It's like, well, I don't remember how I got here. And then I look at the instructions and they're like, do this, do this, do this. I'm like, yeah, no, that didn't work. And there's a whole other things. And we're trying to train a new part-time person in our circulation, and we're like, here, sure. Okay, well, try this. Like, she's never going to learn this because like we were trying to show her, here's 3 steps on how to put something up. For example, add this to reserve collection. Like, oh my gosh, well, and it's like that's not really training, that's just so we just trained her to click everything. So that's frustrating because it doesn't seem like there's one path. Things that you can't figure out. Anyway, all that.
Yeah. My name is Pamela Wilkins. I'm at South Seattle, one of the Seattle College libraries. I'm a reference librarian. I work mostly with Primo. I'm on the Primo team with Katie and Zola and Sharon. And I am just excited to actually get Primo working, which it does not seem to be working.
It is now.
It is now.
Well,
Just
they are.
in theory or really?
Really?
Okay.
Oh, well, most. I mean, okay, they're not. They're more than 3 days ago. A lot more.
Okay, that's cool. Okay.
You'll get there.
It feels like
We've been live since like January. That's kind of how I feel. It's working. Yeah, well, mostly, well, kind of, but still, that's exactly how I feel.
It's just the way they sold it. It was like, it's gonna be a magic unicorn. You press a button, it's gonna be amazing. And Esther found out we did a search on Donald Trump, and we pulled out of all of our resources 800 hits. And I was like, really? It's not. I mean, it wasn't hitting anything. So I'm just eager for.
The Washington Post, which I know is not a free publication and which I know is available in ProQuest, and it didn't pull up any articles from the Washington Post at all.
But of course, I mean, you are in implementation, right? I mean, that's what implementation. There's a few different nuances in Seattle, in the Seattle colleges right now, because we're doing something called inventory groups for the different campuses, because each campus has a separate set of electronic resources that their affiliated students and faculty can get to. And I know that Lay republished to Primo, and I think that's some of what you're starting to see.
Started working, but because your e-resources, we have a ProQuest problem.
Yeah.
A big one. Yeah. With the 4 proxies versus 3.
Like a technical.
Yeah, and that's maybe just one problem. I think there's more. So under investigation.
So Washington Post is the best search right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
And just a heads up that's made this interesting about ProQuest, which I think we found when the book thing happened, because they switched from eBury to eBook Central.
Right.
Is that they're changing their names of things. So US News Sound is now US News Stream. So you have
Yeah.
so that's understand. And also, because ProQuest and Ex Libris are now one, you're going to get a different kind of customer experience than you do when they're dealing with an external vendor.
I thought it would be a better experience.
Yes.
It seemed like the right hand and left hand.
Thank
I mean,
you.
not like, oh, it should know everything about each other, but it's.
But didn't you see when they became the line, Katie?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the naming of things is a really interesting problem because what's in the PCI, what's in Alma e-resources, what you call it, and it's
What the vendor calls
yeah, and
it.
but vendors
Because
don't
there's
even
4
know
different
the
names.
names of their things in
Yes.
Alma. Like if you ask a ProQuest vendor what the names of their tech are, they don't know.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I mean, part of the thing about the community zone in Alma is, a lot of that data, I mean, the ProQuest data comes basically in-house. It should be in-house data for them now, right? So that should get better. And I mean, but, Ex Libris relies on vendors to provide them the package names and the packages and the records. They don't create all those records. The promise of the community zone and Primo is that you can search of all of this stuff at once. And we haven't, I don't know, a lot of you haven't been able to do that in the past. And I mean, what you find out when you start indexing all of that data together is, there's millions of records out there, and not all of them are going to be accurate. There are going to be some links that break. They're going to be, and package naming is one thing that I remember from Puget Sound. There's a lot of drift in package names and what's in a package. Yeah, the vendors are constantly how to sell the thing, not how to get it into necessarily how to get it in Ex Libris, this community zone. So it's a constant. I think it's just a fact of being in that kind of environment where we've got so much data to search now.
there is, and some of you may be aware of this, you can open tickets, and just to comment on the data in action, you can open tickets in Salesforce on the data services asset. And data, if you want to open a ticket about inaccurate data in the community zone, you can open a ticket that will go into the queue for the people that manage the community zone record. So, I mean, that is an ongoing process. If you're subscribed to any of that Ex Libris mailing list, or you follow Alma L, there's weekly community zone updates that you get, emails about listing the new packages that are in, or updated packages. So it's just, yeah.
Oh, I guess a somewhat related thing that I'm curious if the same thing happened with cohorts 1 and 2. The automatically activated packages or sites in the PCI, which is like over 200 things, and did that happen to everyone?
The internet.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Like open access things like Danish cookbooks from pre-1600
In Danish.
not in English. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay.
It was an unactivated.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah. I mean, the open access collections particularly will be inaccurate or unfinished records. They're not. At first, it seemed like something to get excited about. We can activate all this open access stuff, and people just have free everything, and that data is not always the best. It doesn't want to be.
But we're feeling kind of grumpy about having to turn off 200 packages as opposed to some of the ones that we think our users want.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think that's something to register Ex Libris pretty loudly, because it just clogs it. It clogs up your results. It makes it almost impossible to actually test what's happening, because the things we pay for are completely buried under all this junk.
Well, and that's another thing about going to another Primo instance, is that we've done a lot of normalization rule work, which you cannot do yourself, because you might be able to do some yourself, but mostly it's to be done through tickets, since we're total care. And so we've done a lot of normalization rule that says, put our physical books at the top, because that's really the best way to do that.
Yep. I learned a lot about normalization.
Yeah.
So moving on, I mean, one thing that I was interested to hear about, are how many people went to eLuna? I don't know who here went to eLuna. So are any big takeaways?
One of the big takeaways was file Salesforce cases sooner rather than later, that you can be banging your, I was starting to feel like that was maybe the case, but I was definitely hearing from other people, you're banging your head against a wall and you think, oh my God, what have I done wrong? And 9 times out of 10, it's nothing that we're doing. It's something that has gone wrong on Ex Libris's end, and they're the only ones who can fix it. So that was my big takeaway, was don't spend too much time trying to fix it yourself. Go straight to Ex Libris and report it.
Yeah, that's good. We can spend a few minutes on talking about Salesforce and writing good tickets. That is a good topic to discuss. Let's say you're good.
The big lesson that we heard was to not overcomplicate things. Yeah. So when it comes to Alma, remember that we just talked about what our roles are. We're largely smaller institutions. We don't have the Research 1 level staffing, so don't make your Alma more complicated than it needs to be. And then on the new the new Primo instance, even large institutions like Northeastern are keeping it out of the box with very, very little customization, because they did all of this work to really improve it in the old Primo UI, and things change, and the lesson is just, with the new Primo UI, don't go crazy coding it to your own needs. Just keep it as much out of the box as possible. So
I think I learned that, and it's related to what you said, but I went to, in the technical seminar, which is sessions hosted by Ex Libris, the session name would be something like Libra Lovers or whatever, but really what the Ex Libris people were training the audience to do is to speak their language and be really clear when you're putting a Salesforce case in. I mean, literally, it was like, here's how you should talk about it, and here are the words you should use, and here is the information that we need. And so what I gleaned from that is, yes, be really clear and thoughtful when you're opening a Salesforce case, but also you're going to have huge problems with delinquent offer. And that's what most about.
Zola.
What's that?
Zola just came in. You should have Zola introduce you.
Oh.
And when you're part of this, I am looking at your guidance and Christy's guidance on the Primo Mississippi Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, what was, I missed that. What did she say?
She's lucky to have our guidance on the Primo. Oh, and completely on a tangent.
Is that the pushing the rock up there? Is that
Yeah. Completely on a tangent. A few months to see a science fiction exhibit, and they had these little clips with interviews of famous science fiction authors and commentators, and I'm sitting there watching it, and there's Zola Mumford, which was kind of cool. Like, whoa, I know this person. Wow, can I touch you?
Yeah, one thing that we'll be talking about more later in the summer, because it will start coming in from the horizon, is the new Alma interface. There is a new Alma interface coming, and I mean, I haven't even had time to read that much about it or look at it. I mean, I'm aware of it. I don't know if you guys got a chance to go to presentations at Eluna about the new interface. And I mean, does it feel like a sea change?
Yeah.
It does.
It's like, I have really terrible pictures on my phone if there's a way to project to share them. But the things, the search results look a lot like Primo. So when you search for in whatever section.
Oh, so in repository searching.
Even
like,
all the searches look the same. So even user, all the tables are going to be identical, which is nice, no matter what part of Alma you're in. There's a lot of like favoriting. So star the things that you use, and that's what shows up in your search bar. Your search bar is like omnipresent. So it feels more like an app. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they're trying to develop everything to be mobile friendly.
Good. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's probably why. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so we have this room until 10:30. Here's what I suggest we do. I'd like to talk about resources, available resources for a few minutes. And then maybe talk a few minutes about Salesforce cases, since we brought that up a couple of times. And then we can take a short break, come back in this room until 10:30, use a projector, maybe talk about a few of the things that have been brought up, just sort of conceptual things. I mean, we're not really set up to do training, but we can talk a little bit about community zone. That seems like a topic of interest in just electronic resources. And I talk a little bit about, I mean, one of the things that's come up in cohorts 1 and 2 quite often is just understanding the relationship between the PCI and what happens in Alma and what happens in Primo. We can talk a bit about that. We can talk a little bit about analytics. I think that's a very interesting topic that people are interested in. We can talk about TOUs a little bit. Laura, you mentioned TOUs, terms of use. Talk about that. But let me go through a few resources. I had a bunch of slides made up. Most of them I don't think will be that useful, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about review what resources we have available. Even starting with, because those of you who are live on Alma, and even cohort 3s, this probably affected you with Alma Primo going just completely dark over the weekend, right? I mean, I assume you guys are. I was surprised I only got one call, but it happened starting Saturday afternoon, I think at maybe noon, and lasted through like 2 a.m. Sunday morning. So when Alma goes down, and we've talked about this, in the calls that we've been having with cohort 3's probably heard about this in some of the trainings, but there's a site, we can even look at it real quick. Or actually, no, I don't think I'm going to take the time to bring it up, but status.xlibris.com, and if you have a device now, you can pull it up and look at it. It's just a list of all the servers that are hosting Primo and Alma instances for, globally. We are NA01 or NA02 for Alma and NA08 for Primo, and you can look. Let's just do it. I might have to turn around. I can't tell you, in the early days of the Alliance migration, it happened several times that we'd be doing trainings or presentations, and then, Alma would go down or Primo would go down, because that was very early days. I remember there was a high-level meeting in Portland one time with, some high-level ex-Libris execs, and Alma went down, like, during the meeting. It was like, anyways, this is what the status site looks like. And you can get, it's actually a good idea to get on the email notices for these, and there's some place in here you can sign up for it. We're Alma NA02 and Primo NA08. Oh yeah, so you can click there and subscribe yourself. And that's the first place to go if if all of a sudden you can't get to Alma or can't get to Primo. That's the first place to go to see, is the environment generally down? If it's not down, if it doesn't appear down here, you can open a ticket in Salesforce immediately. You might want to, before you do that, contact me and maybe simultaneously your IT group, because you might be having local network issues, that kind of thing. But I gotta go find my slide.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What is that PC? I was just wondering what that says of the PC. Because I keep getting it, and I don't know why. The status, that status slide that you had up. Actually, it wasn't a slide. It was the live.
The live site, yeah. Where did it go?
And I keep getting it, and I don't know.
Did it show on here? Where?
It did. It did.
Sorry,
Yeah, so arrow.
Oh, are you?
CR01. That's the one I always get.
Yeah. Of course, there's a million things I don't know about Alma and Primo. Let's see. I forget what that environment is. That
okay.
Might be related to PCI. I'm not sure, but that's
okay.
I think I knew it at the time. It sounds familiar, but. Yeah, Laura.
In the last cohort 1, cohort 2 call, Green River cut and pasted a really excellent list procedure for what to do when you seem to be having trouble with Alma. And I think I'm going to send her an email and ask her if she will post it to the listserv.
Yeah, I actually plan on doing that. I think, yeah, we had, for those of you in cohort 3, you may not be aware, we do regular, I've been doing regular calls with the cohort 1 leads and the cohort 2 leads, and we just had our first joint call this week, as a matter of fact, and that was one of the things we talked about was this downtime that occurred. And Jennifer Rohan from Green River, who isn't here today, but has been really great for institution. Yeah, it's been really proactive on things like that and hasn't had a nice like step 1, step 2, step 3 if the system goes down for kind of front desk staff. Yeah, kind of your procedure manual. Yeah, and I do have that one posted, and that's it's a good point. A couple of resources I wanted to point out that you may be aware of already, but if you're not, it's good to know about them and get involved in them. This mouse is very sensitive. There are mailing lists that are sponsored by eLuna, one for Alma, one for Primo. Those are national lists. I mean, they're really international lists. They're heavily trafficked. I mean, there's good content on there daily. It's just, customer to customer, peer to peer, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Here's a situation we know about. There's sometimes, more strategic conversations about the product that, Ex Libris monitors it. It's not their official list. They don't, but they use it to make official announcements. Sometimes, their product management group does. So I would highly recommend subscribing to one or both of those lists, depending on which platforms you primarily work with. But and I wouldn't be shy at all about asking questions out there. I see some of you guys out there sometimes. So I know people are using it. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like somebody asked me, yesterday about, what should I have, and this is just, should I have a separate fulfillment unit for equipment? And that's consultative, how-to question. I mean, and you would get, a lot of perspective from Alma L. You might get too much perspective there on a question like that because you get giant, national libraries in Europe that are using Alma and Primo. So you'll get a different answer from them than you would from, one of your cohort libraries or somebody in the Alliance. But both those lists are good. We also have, and I know a lot of you are aware of this and are on these already, we have sort of local lists for our consortium that mirror those lists. I can send this around if you don't already have this. I put this several times in the weekly updates that I send around to the institutional leads. But these lists are hosted on the CTC listserv site. So the same place that CLAMS is the CLAMS L list is hosted, or the libdir, the public libdir. Those lists are out there, and I would like to start getting a lot of meaningful conversation in those lists. Let's take the strategy if somebody asked me a question like that one that I just talked about, I asked them to post it to this list so that I can answer it there, and people who are subscribed to that list can see those conversations and can start getting more sort of matrix-based communication rather than point to point, so that a question that somebody from Bellingham asks is probably relevant to Bellevue or relevant to Seattle. So so those lists are available. I think everybody's aware of the knowledge exlibris.com. That's the main documentation site. Developers, I don't think people are playing that much in yet, but that's the source for Alma API code and examples. Because we kind of had the advantage of being able to centralize the development of patron loading stuff with CTC, institutions didn't have to get involved at the API. The API is also the place for information about loading patron records, for example, from external resources. So that's institutions in implementation often have to spend a lot of time there just learning about how to load patrons, because that's every institution is different, but that's not one that we use a lot. I put the Orbis Cascade site on here because I having worked for Orbis, an Alliance institution, it's kind of my second nature to look there, but it's a pretty rich set of resources. They do, and it's a good model for thinking about how we work together going forward. I mean, it's sort of aspirational for us at this time, but I mean, you can read all about how they're organized, what different working group teams do within the Alliance Consortium. there's a lot of documentation. Some fun stuff to look at is if you find their summer meeting presentations. They do, for the past few summers, they've done big summer meetings where all of the institutions come together, and it's like a mini eLuna and there's a lot of people that present that stuff at the Alliance conferences also presented eLuna. You may have seen some of them, but there's a lot of good content, and it's worth, if you ever have spare time for the 3% time that you have to learn new stuff, that's a good place to go. What else did I want to mention? Yeah, there's a couple feedback loops, official feedback. One's more official, the other less official. Feedback loops for product enhancements. And those of you who, and if you were on Voyager before, you're probably cycle of enhancement requests and negotiating the eLuna and IGELU, the North American and basically European branches of Ex Libris users have sort of a contracted process with the vendor to do product updates based on this, based on an annual cycle of enhancement requests, voting by the entire community, voting on finalists, pointing system based on how difficult development is, and all that. Yeah, all that stuff eventually percolates up, and you end up with 5 to 7 get absorbed into the product each year. If you look at the Alliance side at all, that's a big. There's a working group at the Alliance that does just does review and makes recommendations on what Alliance institutions should vote for enhancement requests. And you have how many of your institutions are members of eLuna? I don't know if that's a big thing right now. I mean, it's something that we can talk about at the board level. And
the consortium, our consortium is now. WACTCLC, as a consortium is a member, we only have one vote in this. I mean, basically, it's like being an institutional member. It's not much different. But within the Alliance, for example, institutions are required to belong to eLuna. That's part of being in the Alliance. And then so they have a big block of votes that they can push towards enhancements that they recommend, that they want to push up the ladder. Ideas exchange is more of a mechanism that Ex Libris uses to get ideas from the peanut gallery. Basically, anybody anywhere can make a recommendation to Ideas Exchange, and it's sort of there's, if you sign up and get an account in the Ideas Exchange, you can vote for the enhancements that are in there. And there's actually good stuff that happens through Ideas Exchange, and it can be a faster process than the eLuna IGELU voting process. So, and you'll see the announcements in the Alma release notes. Each month they'll say, oh, this enhancement came from the NERDS voting, which is the official, or this came from Ideas Exchange. I mean, I've seen stuff into the product pretty quickly when it's just like, when Ex Libris sees something and says, why didn't we think of that? Let's just do it. They'll often do that, and it's an interesting way to learn about what other people are what other people are thinking about in terms of using the product, because you can read ideas about flow or what they're doing with Alma based on what they want to see in the product. And there is a site, the official eLuna site has a library of past presentations from eLuna. I don't know if the 2017s are up there yet, but it's secured, but it's not very secure. The username is eLuna-members, password is eLuna-members. And I don't mind giving you guys that because our consortium is a member, so we have access to that. So those are some resources. Does anybody have any that they use that I've left out? Why don't we take a quick break, because I need a break. I've got to go to the little boys' room and come back maybe in like 5 minutes,
And then we'll try to shotgun through a few of those Salesforce PCI versus Alma. Talk a little bit about analytics, and then after that we'll use the breakout room to break into smaller groups based on functional area. So yeah, let's get back here at 10 o'clock.
I was gonna say, ask Wade about.
Okay.
About
Oh.
Hi, Laura. Nice to see you.
I used to be able to do things. I used to be able to install drivers.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
Congratulations on your award. Yeah. Employee award. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got a new cat. I scored.
Right. Yeah, I can't make my own table.
Yeah, no, they said she was separated. So I'm thinking, oh, great. You know, how many years am I going to take care of this cat? She's very skeptical. Has things in my office, in the closet. It's finally coming out. My husband actually this morning saw her sit in his lap. Or she's not in his lap. And all about trees, you know, about the trees. But she's still, you know, occasionally just like parked out and back into the fence. So back into my office.
Well, we've had one for 6 years that's been.
Really? Are they? Well, I feel like I need to get her like some kind of anti-anxiety medication. I can show you a picture. About 3 weeks. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see, where's my phone? Oh, here. Anyway, yeah, last year we lost our other cat, 17 years. Wow. Yeah. And I didn't want to let him go, but it was totally. Here she is. I just want to bring this picture. Oh, these are sorted pictures. Yeah. There she is. Yeah, she's really crazy. And she's very, I was like, okay, I'm ready now. I want my pets. Totally right here. Beside me. And if I talk on the phone, she thinks I'm talking to her. So then she comes and she starts meowing. Yeah. So
I have one who has discovered
Yeah. So you said your cat was in the bathroom for how long?
I was really going to this. I was trying to respond because she had a little box in her case in there. And I was going to we're going to have, that's what we had. And then she was kind of, one day she might
So this is good. That's good. Yeah, okay, good. Because like the first week, there was like, I'm feeding her, and she comes out, and she's back in. She's been living in this box, this cardboard box with, that has a lid, on it, and it's a moving box. I have no idea what's inside. I have no idea what she's sleeping. It could be anything. I mean, I think it's office supplies because that's what is in the room is office supplies. I don't know. I hope it's flat. It's like I don't know. Maybe she's sleeping on top of some papers and pens. Yeah, and I know maybe I should get her. Yeah. Actually, I have a basket, just a regular storage basket. And wicker rattan, I put but no, she goes back to her box. So. Yeah, she does. Wow. Okay, well, that's good. That's good, yeah. And then, I don't know, she makes me nervous because, I mean, we had and she, like, yeah, she doesn't want it. Is that what that's called? Oh, that's what we call it. Yeah, and then I just think, oh my gosh, what? She also has an extra toe on each of her feet. I guess Holly. Yeah. So she's got a really big paw. Looks like she's wearing mittens or something. And she hasn't really been wanting to be up.
Yeah, I think.
No, not yet.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, in my office there aren't that many places like that. But she is actually under the desk. It's very much territory. So when she's sick of us, she'll just go under the desk. Yeah, I know. I was thinking. Yeah, I really don't know that much about cats. We've had a few. Like I said, they were just so mellow, very predictable. She did get into. My husband told me last night. Somehow she got into our bedroom area. And she found an empty bag, paper bag in my office, or in my closet, the clothes closet. And apparently I had a conversation with him about it, and I don't remember any of this. And I said, what's that noise? And it was whistle. And she just ran out and she could, I think. And then but I had no idea. So that's good. I was asleep. He did not want my sleep to be interrupted. Yeah. I know, but she's extremely curious. We're trying to keep her out of it because we just don't want her to get sleep. And it's fine if she, like, our other cats got used to it, if they weren't supposed to sleep. But we're interrupted.
All right, shall we go ahead and reconvene?
Yeah. That's the hard because you're there. I know.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see request support.
Other support options.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it probably.
I think we need to listen louder.
Yeah. Okay, shall we reconvene? Ryder? Come on down.
I didn't realize we were still dealing with it.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, because we're not huge institutions with records, but also because we're not huge institutions with millions of records, we can use these tools.
Right. Like university.
But our collections they're a good size for using this stuff.
Are you talking about record limits in Excel?
Well, so I used to present at Northwest. Almost every year I had an ongoing presentation on using Excel access to do a bunch of data cleanup projects when you're not a programmer. And I think that I need to pull that out and dust it off and do it for us because it's really applicable to institutions our size.
You know, I think all right, shall we that's all right. It's good for people to get to know one another. That's what we're here for. How many people are attending CLAMS proper? Are most people here going to CLAMS as well? Yeah. So, and does that start like at 11:30? Or are there presentations starting at 11:30? Yeah. Okay. So we won't. Yeah. So we won't go. I won't go until 11:30. Yeah, just because there's a right before 10:30, we're going to move into that room, so we'll have to make a quick exit. And then a lot of you are. So we'll probably only spend 45 minutes in that room or so, so people can have time to break and refresh before they go to CLAMS proper, wherever you're going to next. Yeah.
I just looked at the schedule, and it looks like that the first CLAMS thing is 10:30 to 11:30. Good intentions are not enough.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We will have. Yeah, and that's happening here. So we'll be in that room starting at 10:30. So we'll take a mini break. But I thought while we had the screen, maybe we could talk through a couple of things. I don't know how much show and tell I can do for you, but. Let's just spend a couple minutes on Salesforce. How many people can open tickets in Salesforce? So, and Lindsay, yeah. So, so you're sort of familiar with the drill. I think it was Katie, right?
Well,
she was talking about how Ex Libris, kind of coaches you to open Salesforce tickets, and it's. The things to remember about opening Salesforce tickets: one issue per. And if you want to come forward, those of you in the back, to hear a little, because it sounds like they're going to start filling up this room. One discrete issue per ticket is best. It's because that makes it. The more you can atomize, shrink it down to the smallest problem you can describe, the easier it is to replicate, to talk about with the support rep. Because, it's a big company. They have a big support desk. I don't know how it was in Voyager. I know in Millennium, the support reps had kind of intimate knowledge of, because it was a smaller vendor, smaller support staff. They would know more about your environment. These guys aren't going to necessarily know your institution, what you're about. They're not going to have background information. That I read tickets sometimes, and I don't always write the best tickets either. But things I've seen a ticket before, talking about how Joe, who worked here a couple of years ago, used to do it. Extraneous information you want to leave out of the tickets as much as possible, because you kind of want to give them just a fact, sort of. So, a discrete problem to talk about, and usually what ex-leavers will tell you, and I think it's the best way to write a ticket, is describe what you were trying to accomplish, how you tried to accomplish it, what you expected to happen, and what actually happened. I mean, those are kind of the main, who, what, where, when, why, but maybe without the why, because not too much narrative, just
Screen captures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, screen captures are awesome. Oh, another thing, especially when you get into reporting electronic resource issues or access issues, make sure they have an account that will authenticate them in Primo and also in Easy Proxy. That just makes it a lot faster because they'll have backdoor accounts that they can log into Primo with, but it won't be valid in your Easy Proxy instance, for example. So they can't follow the whole path. So particularly for those kinds of tickets, that information is important. We were talking about data services. I've got, this is, and just FYI, both Shelley Whitaker, who was the former Orca person who's now works for the new consortium, as well as myself, have full access to all of the Salesforce. I'm kind of on a daily basis monitoring what kind of tickets people are opening and what's going on out there. So I have a sense of what kind of problems people are having. So you may need sometime, some of you probably already have before. I'll email you too about, I saw this ticket, try this or try that, or here's what you should be doing. So that's just something to be aware of. And I can also open cases like that are affecting everyone, or and I wanted to, so I don't know how well you can see this, but there's an asset called Alma Data Services. And if you're reporting an issue with community zone metadata problems like collection name, or even the link doesn't go to the resource, or a link.
So last night, Shireen and I were trying to activate was it the e-library collection, and there was a parser parameter in the community zone record that was something like URL equals thebatonline.com. What? So that's the kind of thing that's on the data services?
I hate to say it depends, but I would have to know more about it. I mean, certainly you can open a Salesforce case, and if it's like if somebody if you're not sure if it's a data services case, just open it as an Alma case, and they'll kick it over to data services if they don't know. Yeah, the parser parameters are kind of an interesting thing, and I saw one of your electronic collections that had values for all the parser parameters, which probably you don't need. I mean, you would only use one, I think, but I wasn't sure. Not to get into a single issue, but yeah, what I mentioned before, that the data services, when you have community zone metadata. Priority is another thing you can set. System down. You might use that in a rare circumstance where you are just dead in the water, but the status xleaversgroup.com site indicates everything's green. You don't seem to have a network problem on campus. You can go ahead and open a systems down ticket, and you can also CC people on tickets if you're not aware of that. And you're welcome to CC me on any tickets that you'd like me to take a look at as well. Looking at Salesforce more or less daily anyway, so I'll see tickets that people open. So systems down is just rare cases. You can, the ex-leaver spiel on priority is, the more people the issue affects, or the more records it affects, the more likely you'll set the ticket to high. And they do have, technically the difference is expected response time on a ticket. 8 hours. I don't remember what the exact is off the top of my head, but I know. And another thing you can do with tickets, and I'll do people, but you can escalate a ticket if you feel like you're not getting response or not getting a good answer. And you can run tickets by me if you want. I mean, feel free to ask me, oh, should I, can we escalate this ticket, or is this something that you think I should escalate? And you can, because you can, there are like direct email addresses that you can send a ticket to. And I've done that for people before just to get, kind of light a fire, so to speak. I would mention it's somewhat important to go ahead and close tickets if the issue is resolved. What will happen over time is you'll start using Salesforce tickets as a management system to see what tickets are open in my institution, what things are we still working on, and if you've got a lot of sort of tickets that are really closed but they're still showing open in Salesforce, you may not be. And it's also helpful to me because then if you close the ticket, then I won't. That's not something that I need to look at all. So I'd appreciate if you do close tickets, because what will often happen is when they resolve something that, and I think they started doing this because people weren't closing tickets, so they just had all tickets were open infinitely. They have, it's a fairly new status called closing, and if it's when they think the issue is resolved and they feel like you think the issue is resolved, it will close automatically in a couple weeks anyway. So that's.
Yeah, when I was on summer break, a bunch of my tickets closed because I didn't check my email. I was on vacation, and for a couple weeks, a whole bunch of my stuff.
Yeah, and
Like, oh,
yeah. One thing you can do is, if you're going to be going away, and I think the closing period is like 20 days. If you think you're going to be gone more than 20 days, you can, add a note to the ticket saying that, please leave this ticket open. Any question? Any other things about Salesforce that I forgot or people want to mention as far as?
So if you're doing a quarterly customization, then would you just list all the things you needed?
Yeah. She's referring to Primo Total Care. Primo Total Care. There's certain kinds of changes. You technically you can only request quarterly, and they are changes related to either the CSS or the HTML. They get rolled up in what's called the UI package. That's the and those of you who went live on the new Primo UI, that's not something that you had to worry about, and it's not something that you would change very often. So it's not that it basically has to do with the sort of the text that appears when you go to your Primo URL, and it has the opening splash page with whatever verbiage you have about it or what you want to say about Primo.
So that's not something that you can ask me.
No, well, you can do it yourself via the UI package. And one I'll have with cohort 1 next week because we've got to deal with that since they're not on the new Primo UI. Those of you who went through implementation on the new Primo UI, Xlabris has already done that for you. So unless something needs to change, and those are the only things that technically you can only request quarterly. But the changes to like labels, and we'll talk more about that next week for those of you who are in cohort 1 anyway. But that's good. Oh, another thing that I often tell sites to do is if you're opening a Primo case, go ahead and say in the ticket narrative, we are a total care site, just so they don't have to think about whether you are or not, because their answer might, their approach will differ, because if they know you're a total care site, they know what you have access to and what you don't have access to. So if you're asking for something that you can't change yourself when you're total care, then they'll know that's
a choice on the drop down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is a place. There is a lower down. If you open like a category. If you select Primo up here, you can select this where exactly. Yeah, that's good too. Yeah. What else? It's enough on Salesforce. We're actually quickly running out of time. Let me try to give a 2-minute explanation of community zone versus PCI, or at least an introduction for those of you who are confused about this, because it takes a while to absorb, and it took a while for me to absorb. So you can activate collections in Alma in what's called a community zone that you subscribe to. You can also activate some things in what's called the PCI and in the PCI interface. And I'll try to describe the difference between the two. The community zone is you're activating collections that typically you would only activate things that you subscribe to, and you're activating them at a journal title level. Most usually it's an ebook collection or a journal collection, and when you do that, you're activating a set of records at the title level. So when those collections get processed through the published to Primo and then get indexed in Primo, those materials are available and searchable in Primo at the title level, and they'll search just like your regular book records do. I mean, you can search on title, you can search on data in the MARC record for the journal title, but you're searching. If you don't do anything in the PCI, you're making that stuff visible in Primo at the title level. Now, what the PCI is for activating the searchability of additional content, most typically full text articles. So you have collection ABC that you activated in Alma, and there is an analogous collection in the PCI that you can activate. If it's available to activate in the PCI, you activate that, it allows it indicates to Primo that to make full text article searching for whatever full text content is available to Ex Libris to index, it makes that stuff available to search as well. So what will happen when you activate that stuff is that when Primo does a search, it'll in addition to searching the records that come out of Alma, it searches the content of that full text stuff, and it knows based on what you've activated in Alma, it knows which articles you actually have access to, and it will show those in Primo. Yes, no?
I have a question. I thought I got that all, I understood that, and when I went to the seminar, it was they said they had an interoperability session, and then they said, okay, if you don't activate both in Alma and Central Primo PCI, the full text searching isn't possible in Primo. So I understood that, but we noticed the cases where somehow we missed it in Alma, and it's not the electronic collection is not activated in Alma, but it is in PCI, and then the full text searching is happening in Primo. So I'm a little confused about.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move into the other room, and then we can talk about this some more.
How do you keep that white?
Oh, yeah.
Keep that white.
What?
Oh, the laptop.
And she's twins.
Right.
And they're how old? 5, 4.
4.
It's a wonder that I haven't.
I am.
Right?
Right.
I actually broke one, so that's why it's white.
Oh, okay, this is new. Okay, guys.
They dramatic.
Oh.
I was having this kind of anxiety, almost not really. I was having this anxiety recently about, oh my gosh, what happens if something goes wrong with my laptop? Because right now, at this point in the migration, I'm visiting each library once a week to help everybody through, and there are no extra computers anywhere. So if I don't have my laptop, I'm getting a lot of it. I was like, oh my god, what happens if I break my laptop? Oh my gosh, maybe I should order a backup. Do we have any money for a backup? No.
You know what's great for Alma is a Chromebook. Everything's in the browser.
Yeah.
I'm a big Chromebook fan.
Yeah.
I am too. I find them so convenient and they're so cheap. Well, yeah, let's so talking about the PCI. And then there's a whole, I call those false positives when you get it, when you get a false positive result in Primo. And that's a good kind of data service ticket. Because typically that's a metadata issue. And it can be the way to go a little deeper into what happens when Primo finds an article search result from your search, it's not comparing like a package, it's just comparing like an ISSN or an EISSN. It doesn't, when it checks Alma to see if you have, and it's not really checking Alma, and this is why there's a delay in the publishing cycle. On a weekly basis pushes out basically a file of all of your holdings that then Primo knows to check when it finds like the stuff from the PCI. It wants to see if you have access to it. And the reason why that's not done real time is there's just so much data. I mean, this is my guess. There's so much data that they can index Alma changes in more or less real time. I mean, Alma gets published, Alma changes to like a regular MARC record in Alma gets published every 6 hours to Primo, then it gets indexed overnight, and so it's available the next day. But unless indexing job doesn't run, there can be problems, but that's the schedule. Paul's going to tell me that, I make changes and they don't show up the next day.
I have a question. It feels like a stupid question, but so if we activate things in Alma, right, and it's an article search in the PCI and there's a hit, the PCI goes to Alma to see if we own the thing. Why do we have to activate things in PCI? What does that do?
Well, it makes it makes that full text article searchable. If you don't activate it, it's not going to search it. Yeah.
So Alma is saying we own a particular title. PCI is doing the abstracting and indexing.
Yeah.
Right, because Alma information doesn't have the article level metadata, whereas PCI does. But then that's the thing that I don't understand. So if we don't have the collection activated in Alma, we're not sending the holdings record of that particular collection, but by activating in PCI, the results come in. It's not bad because it's working.
Right.
All we have to do is probably activate the collection in Alma. But then I also heard from I think it's Haley and Dale, Edmund librarians, and they were saying that if they activated Alma and PCI, sometimes they get duplicates. So they ended up deactivating one or the other. I can't remember which one. And it doesn't just make sense to me because the whole, interoperability between Alma and PCI and Primo requires both of them activated. So I just don't understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can unpack those a little bit, I think. The first one, to talk about the false positives. I mean, what can happen is if an article, as I mentioned, the check isn't really against the package that you have. It's just seeing that article has a reference to, either something like a DOI number or an ISSN or an EISSN, and it checks your holdings file and says, oh, do you have that? And then and do you have access to that, to the range? If there's volume information, date range, do you have access to that? And where errors can occur is if in that metadata the ID number, like an ISSN, is incorrect, and so it matches. It's a false positive match because it matches, but it's the wrong journal title, or it's the wrong.
There was a presentation in UNA this year. Oh, and I'm trying to remember the title of the presentation, but it was some folks at, I think, one of the Michigan universities that did a study of where linking was failing in Primo, and see if you can find it on the eLuna website, because they've got some slides that talk about what the general categories of failure were. So a lot of times the issue was that there was an incorrect ISSN in the Alma community zone record.
Right.
Sometimes it was, actually more often it was a problem on the vendor's end with the way that the vendor was constructing the URL. That was a really, really helpful presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and again, especially for the non-ProQuest stuff, that data isn't originating with Ex Libris, so it's like finding incorrect things in WorldCat, for example, that happens, or I did some development work on like book cover stuff, they're like book covers will, every once in a while a book cover will just be completely wrong because the book covers are coming, you get them from Syndetics, or in Primo right now it's Google Books. If if the ID number is wrong on the image or vice versa, and how publishers sometimes the data is junky. They reuse ISSNs or they put the wrong one on there. They don't really care. It's only as good as data. Yeah, and speaking about accuracy of linking, I remember we used to do this at Puget Sound when we first went live. I mean, we had litmus tests about, like, when we first went live, and other Alliance institutions did things similar. Like, particularly in the early days, we'd find collections that just weren't very accurate, and so like I would do a quick litmus test. Like I'd find 20 articles for JSTOR, natural history collection or whatever. Find 20 random articles. If half of them failed, then we deactivate that in the PCI because, and I'm talking about article linking, we deactivate that collection in the PCI because it just wasn't accurate enough. So
they were running a Python script at University of Minnesota.
Well, that's a better way to do it,
Yeah. I mean, but what I was just saying, to Kate before we moved in here was, we just don't have the capacity to write it in do a Python script to check all of the links, but that's what they do, so.
U of M is a really good Alma shop. I mean, and you see them a lot on Alma L. Barbara Friesen, I think is her name. She's
Betsy
Friesen. Yeah, she's like heavily involved. But anyways, so yeah. Oh, and another thing that you might have accurate, the data might be accurate, but one thing that you might, a phenomenon you might see is when you click an article link, or it could even be a journal link, and sometimes then you land on just the landing page of the vendor's collection site, but not at the journal or at, not at the article, or sometimes even not at the journal. And that's generally a parser parameter, or just a construction of the URL is not, the URL in the metadata is not, it's not current with thing. And that, especially, it can be and I think that oftentimes the the publishers and providers are two different people, right? And I think that's where sometimes there's data drift between, if they're not a big enough publisher, they pay another provider to host the content, provide access to it. And so that, there's drift in the link that's in the metadata that's in the community zone or in the article, and what the provider site is actually expecting for the URL. But those are really data services tickets. What you'll become familiar with, and maybe you already have a sense of this because you guys are doing this in other ways before Primo, is determining whether access is either an easy or an issue with your account configuration with the vendor, right? And it won't happen that often, but if IP ranges change at your institution but haven't been updated in your EBSCO admin account, then all hell can break loose, because, right, EBSCO, when you're on campus, EBSCO won't work because Easy Proxy is configured to know you're on campus and not proxy, but then EBSCO doesn't know you're on campus. And we'll probably run into those things for a while at Seattle as we figure out this multi-easy proxy inventory group, because that's an interesting scenario that I know I have dealt with, and it's not as common. But I mean, it's supported, so it's just. And I mean, I guess another aspect of collections is something that Leslie mentioned and Laura mentioned, is the local collection versus community zone collection. I mean, we've had cases, EBSCO ebooks seem to be this way, where the collections that are available in the community zone don't really reflect what libraries are holding, because some of it has to do with, EBSCO and Ex Libris being in direct competition. So, EBSCO is not as tight with its data and won't provide its data to other vendors.
Or they say they will, and Ex Libris won't work with them. But it seems like the multiple flavors that you can buy ebook collections in from EBSCO are it's seemingly infinite, and they're just not reflected in the community zone accurately. So, in short, the solution, the best solution seems to be, and Leslie's working on this at Pierce, is not activating the collection in the community zone, but creating a local electronic collection in Alma, signing up with EBSCO to get your records published to WorldShare Collection Manager, so that you can download a set of MARC records there and then load them into Alma, which will create the bib record and create a portfolio record for you. So then you have a local collection in Alma that, to the extent that the records that you get from EBSCO into WorldShare are accurate, should be 100% accurate. Whereas, I think like when December, when I was over there, when we were fooling around with it was like 50% accurate out of, there were a lot of books that weren't reflected in the community zone collection, and there were a lot that there were those false positives. Just to correct one thing, sorry, wait, you don't sign up with EBSCO for the records, you sign up with CLC.
And you just tell them your EBSCO account thing. So you don't have, there's actually nothing you need to sign up for on the EBSCO side. Okay.
OCLC has a number of arrangements with different ebook publishers, where the publishers will send the MARC records to OCLC as a package. But they don't have it with everybody.
Yeah, but I expect that everybody is enough of a member. Everybody's a cataloging member of OCLC, I would assume. So you have WorldShare, you have that collection manager thing available to you.
But the interesting thing I heard at the technical seminar was that the OCLC charges based on the usage. I don't know, I have to talk to the people who pay the bill, and if you just use it more and more, the fee is gonna go up. Is that?
So you get billed annually for the WorldCat cataloging service subscription, and whatever the annual price gets adjusted based on your usage the previous year. For Seattle colleges, each college has its own subscription. And in general, the annual price for us ranges somewhere between, it floats between $1,500 to $2,000 a year. And sometimes it goes up a little and sometimes it comes down.
So it's within a reasonable
Yeah.
range.
I definitely don't think it's enough that I would worry about
Okay.
loading vendor records through
Okay.
WorldCat.
On the local collections, then do all of those bib records need an 856?
No.
No?
I mean, they'll have if they're coming from EBSCO via WorldShare, they'll have 856. They'll have the correct link in them. And then via the configuration of the local collection, you can turn on the proxy. So yeah, I mean, that's a great thing about Alma versus Millennium anyways, or, is it,
Voyager is that
you used to have to put the, easy proxy prefix in front of everything, and that's, but just FYI, if you have records that have the easy proxy prefix in them still, you can double proxy something in easy proxy and it'll work. So it's not, you're not, if you've thought, it seems like I've heard people have asked me that before, and it's not good to get them out of there eventually, but because your proxy server name may change someday or something. It was good. Now, you mentioned that thing about Edmunds and the double search results of their ebook collection. If I remember correctly, I believe it had to do with the transition from there was that transition that ProQuest made from one, like ebook, from the old thing to ebook central, and to do with, I mean, that's not double search result. Is not the expected result. In Salesforce terms. So that was sort of a one-off based on, and their activations were inaccurate. I cannot explain it well, but there is another thing you can use the PCI for that might be nice depending on your use cases is, you can activate things in the PCI that you don't own, right? So like if you have a nursing program and there's some really expensive journals that you can't afford, but you want them searchable anyways because you want the nursing students to at least see kinds of things that are out there and even gauge if there's interest in the journal, for example, because to the extent that they'll make ILL requests on stuff that they can't get. So if you activate something in the PCI that you don't have activated in Alma, those results will show up if you use that expand my results option in Primo. And that's an option that can be on by default. The expand my results basically says provide all search results regardless of whether I own them. And that means things that you have activated in the PCI, but you don't have holdings for it. And then, so people can see citations basically for things. That's another reason. Or another use case for activating things in the PCI. They don't necessarily have to be activated in. It's not. I can't think of any specific use cases I know about people did that, but I can imagine that there might be some good ones. That kind of we have this program and we can't afford the most expensive journals for that kind of subject area, but we kind of at least want to see what kind of research is out there.
That expand my results functionality, I'd imagine I would hold true with open access materials if we only activate in PCI.
Now, the open access materials, if you activate in the PCI, will show up in your results because you do have access to it. The Primo, if I'm not mistaken, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but that's why when like Wikipedia is activated in the PCI, it floods Primo search. Because if it's open access to it, so those results will show up.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's
just
why-
checking my
yeah.
understanding there.
Yeah.
So basically with an open access one, you just turn it on in PCI and walk away.
And I mean, there is I don't know, I haven't heard of anybody running into this yet, but it became a big problem in the Alliance related to open access and how they get proxy. Because if you're proxying everything and there are things that don't need to be proxied, that link will break because it's not configured in easy proxy. So that there, Ex Libris, that was a thing that's kind of like enhancement requests that Ex Libris addressed, where they made, there's a fine tuning knob in the PCI, I think, where you can tell it not to proxy things that at least the PCI knows are open access. So that's, anyways, that's another and kind of a corner case in that whole open access. And there's another thing. You know how in Primo, when you look at the detail record, you get sometimes you'll get a set of other links. There are some collections for which the content isn't accessible through an open link resolver. So Primo tries to put direct links to those resources. I mean, most of what happens in the PCI, checking if you have holdings, all that's is using a syntax called OpenURL that uses a standardized way of passing parameters through the URL to find the exact article. There's some content providers that just don't, or some collections that just aren't accessible through OpenURL links. So the vendors have direct links to that content, and that's why sometimes instead of the list of kind of resources you get on the View It tab, you get that set of links in the upper right corner. Those are different. Those are one's OpenURL and one is not. And I don't have any. Can't tell you. It'd be hard to find an example. I can't think of a collection that's like that, but there are some out there.
Yeah, I have a question about in the View It tab. When you just get the generic full text, is that part of it? Is that why you get that instead of the name of the database?
Yeah, that thing that says full _txt_. Yeah, I'm not. We can talk about it on Tuesday. I forget where that exactly comes from. That. Yeah, I'm not. I can't tell you on that. That's yeah. We'll figure that out though. Yeah. And it's. All right, other electronic resource. I'm kind of watching time and thinking about. I'd like to talk a little bit about analytics, but it's kind of hard to do without a show and tell. Just a couple of things about analytics, just so you're aware, or just reminders. What's called analytics in Alma is actually not an Ex Libris product. It's something from Oracle. It's called Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition, and it's kind of a runtime version of OBIEE but it's a pretty industry, for any Oracle-based databases, of which Alma is one. That OB product is a standard way of doing analysis on that kind of data. And what happens is that when you run reports in analytics, it's not looking at real-time data, because that would be too much of an impact on just performance of Alma in general. But what happens is every night, the updates to your Alma data get rolled into the data that analytics looks at. So as long as that nightly job doesn't have any problems, and it doesn't very often, very occasionally it might, the data that you look at in analytics is a day old. So you're not looking at
today's data. And that, for some, I mean, there are, for anything that you need real-time information on, you've got to use an Alma search. You've got to use tools inside of Alma. And there are course reserves, and it is kind of an example where people sometimes think to use analytics to try to get real-time stuff on course, like what's due, since course reserve due dates are typically, circulation periods are 2 hours you want to see. So that's not going to work for real-time data. It takes, analytics takes a bit of practice to get used to, because it's a different, it's a more abstract way of looking at the data than.
A friend of mine who's a software developer in New York City was, when he heard that we have that product, was commenting that in his industry it's known as consultant welfare software. Oh.
I mean, the consultant welfare part is the part that Ex Libris has already done for us. The big part of, like out of the box, that analytics tool is basically just like a spreadsheet tool or something. It's not, to make reporting useful, you have the data in databases is typically not stored in the same way that you want to report it out. It's stored in ways that work well for databases. So you have to have this middle layer to describe how you want to be able to report on the data. And that's the part that's like, I don't know anything about that, but I know it's a lot of work. And that's why, but that's pretty much been done for us. That's why when you're in analytics, and you'll get used to this, that some of the stuff in analytics is not available or usable by us. The usual thing that you do in analytics is go to new analysis. It's called an analysis that you want to do and run a report. There's things called reports in there. If you click on them, they're not enabled for us because it's not a tool designed for Alma. It's a tool designed for Oracle databases, and there's just stuff in there that's not, hasn't been enabled or set up for our reporting needs. And if you've done anything in analytics, there are these different subject areas. You can do reports on fulfillment, or you can do reports on inventory. You can do reports on users, I think, and those are different subject areas. And typically, you're just going to report on one subject area at a time. I don't know if anybody's tried to report on 2 areas at a time. It's typically best just to do one subject area. There is a way, Paula, and I don't know if you're aware of this.
It's a shared dimension.
Or if you can a common dimension, or the way I usually do it, just to run a report in one subject area and then base a report on another's of the first one. And it seems like I did that recently for somebody I can't remember, but that can be useful.
So as an example of using 2 dimensions, one I saw on the listserv recently about books due by people who are expiring within 1 week. Is that 2 dimensions, or is that 1 dimension? Because it's books due date plus patrons expiring within another date.
That's all in fulfillment.
Pardon?
That should all be in fulfillment.
Okay, all right.
But that sounds like what I did recently, and I can't remember. I think I did it for Bellingham, maybe, where, or I don't know if it was for you guys, or I can't remember.
The expiration date is not in fulfillment, though. I bet that's in the patron, the users.
So that would be an example of 2
Yeah.
different dimensions. Okay, all right.
And it's not, you don't have to do that kind of stuff that often. It's not too often that you need to cross, like from one subject area to that. And it's typically when you want to report, fulfillment, something like sometimes the fulfillment transactions are just like user ID, barcode, date it was due, maybe the TOU that applied, but it doesn't tell you about, I think the patron name is in there, but probably not expiration. Like run a report of patrons expiring in 2 days, and then use that as an input for, where user is in this, this other report, just report the transactions for those. So it's sort of like a filter for the second query that you run. What else did we?
But I think after Cohort 3 finishes up their migration, they definitely want to put together some kind of workshop or call or something where.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of the, I'm looking to see what, so we talk about Salesforce, talk about electronic analytics. Yeah, we can talk about a little bit about organization and that kind of stuff. I mean, we've been in implementation so far, so we're not, as of mid-July, everybody will be live and will be in full production mode then. I mean, this is.
I feel like when at Luna, talking with a bunch of folks from cohort 1 and 2, it feels like they're kind of chomping at the bit to start doing some of this consortial level work and communication.
Yeah, this is sort of the second. We had a get together like this in early November for cohort 1. That was more of a hands-on because we had all day in Bellevue and we were in a lab where we kind of walked through a lot of topics. Since then, we've been doing these weekly cohort 1 and cohort 2 calls. This week was the first call where we joined those together. A couple of things are happening right now. That we have we have transition from going from implementation to production. We have this transition at a higher level going from what's been called the governance committee of the project, which consists of Mindy Kostler at Skagit, who's the chair of that, other directors involved. I don't have the list in front of me. What's happening is that is transitioning to the board for us, kind of a production board for the consortium, and the chair for the first go around, at least, is going to be Christy Flynn from Pierce. Yeah, and I had a slide with the names. I don't know if you saw me when I was flipping through the slides here. That board will really become official after everybody's live. We have the governance committee has been meeting monthly, and it's basically about project status and billing so far. Another change that's happened at that level. Guy Hollenberry, who's participated in a lot of the calls with us, who's kind of was the project director, drove the negotiation with the vendor and all that. He's retired. I don't know.
I found that out when I sent him an email. And got a reply.
Yeah, he kind of slipped out quietly. So it was, that was just end of April. So he's out of the picture. Other people on the board, Andrew Hurst-Tutor from Wenatchee, Tim Furman from Big Bend. Big Bend is still the physical agent for the consortium, so he's sort of sort of permanently on the board as treasurer until that were to change. Who else? Watcom. Howard Fuller is on the board. Yeah, will be. I mean, this is important. And what's going to happen so the governance committee is meeting monthly. The board will meet. The board will start joining those calls as implementation winds down, and then they'll ramp up. Leslie.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, I had a couple slides on just there is a charter for the new consortium that it actually didn't exist until earlier this year, so there wasn't actually an official consortium until all the institutions signed up. So the consortium consists of all of the community colleges in the state. There are projects within the consortium like this one that people can participate in that might cost money, and they pay into that project. There are several institutions that are not part of this project. Clark College is on Alma Primo, but they're in the Alliance. Spokane community colleges are using Alma Primo, but they're in WIN. There are Tacoma Community College and Bates College are not participating in this project. There might be, Columbia Gorge. It sounds like I always mix it up with Lower Columbia, but it's like Columbia something. It's where the last LLC meeting was.
Columbia Basin.
Columbia Basin, yeah. So they're not in it. And I'm still learning the structure of all this. There's a lot of layers of organization, and since I kind of had to ramp up quickly on this project, there's SBCTC, which was involved in the initial contract. I don't think I have a perfect understanding of how SBCTC relates to things like the Library Leadership Council, and how the new consortium relate to LLC, because it's sort of similar constituency. It's basically just all the libraries, right? So it's, and I had a couple slides on, kind of gets into this topic of how do we organize, and I had a couple slides on how the Alliance is organized, because that's what I'm most familiar with, and Kirsty's familiar with that as well. Of course, the Alliance has a long culture of consortial work. I mean, they started 20 or 30 years ago with the courier services where they started, so they kind of built out relationships through that over the years, and then a few years ago got heavier into the ILS project stuff. But they're organized around functional areas, and there's sets. There are standing teams that are made up of staff from member institutions. There's systems, discovery, like fulfillment and ILL. And those are all sort of self-explanatory. I mean, systems is a little bit fuzzy, but then all those are when they have shared content, which kind of straddles kind of cooperative purchasing of resources and their management within the ILS. So it's sort of ILS centric, and it's sort of not. And then there's a big team for local content, unique content, and that's kind of like archive, special collection stuff. So there's a lot of like organization around that kind of work. The way and all this is just sort of background information that will help us think. Will help you think about, how does my institution participate in the portion? How do we want to organize?
How was Orca? Because I'm at Seattle colleges, we were never in Orca. Like, we were kind of doing things on our own. And how was Orca organized? Was there a lot of?
I don't know if anybody. Well, Laura, you might be able to speak to that a little bit.
Because I know everybody shared Shelley.
Or Adrian, you were.
Basically, there was a board. There was an Orca board that was mostly library directors, and then there was Shelley, who was responsible for support and also organizing further training and initiatives. And that's all I know about it.
Yeah, and I don't think there was. I don't get the sense that there was that kind of team or working group kind of organization across the institutions like the and I think that's the way
but that cross-institutional work with Orbis Cascade, that didn't happen until everybody went onto the same Alma Primo system for the most part.
Right. Yeah. Well, it did around I guess the Curry. I mean, I'm sure there are working groups with Curry, and it really probably started a few years before that when we did WorldCat local. They started using an OCLC platform for cross-institutional sharing, which is kind of was the reason for being for Orbis Cascade. But the way the working groups work. And that's kind of why I was partly why I was mentioning the Orbis Cascade website as an interesting resource to look at to see, what, if you want to get a sense of what kinds of things institutions are doing consortially around Alma and Primo. I mean, just look at the monthly updates on the Alliance site. Either there's a monthly update that comes from the executive director, who's, as it happens, is a fairly new executive director after like 20 years with John Helmer, who was the sort of longstanding director of the Alliance. As I mentioned, there's these functional working groups that are working groups that are organized functionally. There is, and the way the board basically creates it's the board and the count. They have the Alliance has I don't know how many staff now, like 9 or 10 staff people. About 4 of whom have positions similar to mine, like our program managers. There's a program manager, kind of a fulfillment discovery program manager, unique content program. So those are people that do work like I do, working directly with institutions. Then there's, of course, an executive director. A lot of the agenda of the Alliance is really driven by the council, which just consists of the directors of all the libraries. It's sort of like LLC, except it's a little neater in terms of organization, because the Alliance is a separate. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. It's not, it's member fee funded. So institutions pay in to be members. And so, institutions pay that membership fee. And so are active, they're putting their money towards it so that, and it's completely outside of their institutional budgets. So it's, they're very active. The council is very active in setting the agenda for what the Alliance should do. The board is sort of are elected members of the council that operate as like an executive board. The way those working groups spun up is that the board, in conjunction with the program managers, decide, how do we organize this thing, and came up with sort of early charters for what the working group should be about. There's this whole process of nomination and appointment of people to these working groups, and it's actually a competitive process, believe it or not. I mean, it's like you almost have, it's not quite like applying for a job, but being on a working group in the Alliance is something people want to do, and there's sometimes more people than it's, so the board sort of selects. The board makes the appointments some of it is based on geographic considerations. You want to get a balance of people across institutions, different institutional sizes, all that kind of stuff. And there is some mention of that kind of thing in the charter for this consortium that the directors have signed on to. The development of subcommittees with membership based somewhat on geographic balance kind of thing.
Can I interrupt you to kind of go off on something that you touched on with the idea of these functional areas? One of the things that's been not really an issue for us at Seattle colleges, but something where I see our WACTCLC consortium possibly being a good resource for is, so because we didn't participate in ORCA, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing in-house that we do it because that's always the way we did it, and we never really put any thought in it, and there was never any support for staff training, and never any support for staff to work with people outside the institution. And one of the things that I'm kind of excited for with WACTCLC, and with so many of us being on Alma Primo now, is the idea that we might be able to share procedures with each other, so that we're not constantly having to reinvent the wheel, and especially so that, like, at some of the small institutions where we've got just 1 or 2 people, they can look at, well, this is the way that other folks in the consortium are doing it, and so they don't have to put a lot of effort into figuring it out.
hope that would go for a lot of the duplicated collections too.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all paying for the same thing over and over and over again, where I think if we came together and try to, maybe other institutions are already doing that, and the college I work for just is not, but putting more weight behind. We have 34 colleges that want to subscribe to ProQuest. What kind of deal can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's the cooperative buying, and then there's also cooperative sharing. I mean, there's a whole area that we could get into in the consortium if it's a direction that like our council, our board want to go. And I know there's been some talk of this, of interlibrary loan, what I would call
resource sharing.
Resource sharing. The way you get something from one college to another right now is through ILL.
And at Seattle colleges, we don't even have an automated ILL system. The way we do ILL is somebody looks up something in WorldCat, and then they go to the library website and they find a phone number and they call someone and say, hey, well, you should like.
So you guys aren't using the world share and I don't know if that I don't know if that's a separate, because I know a lot of institutions are using world share, which is, it's more automated. It's not, the Alliance, they're all based on Iliad, and it's a bit more automated.
The world share doesn't interrupt with Primo, so it's still an extra step.
Yeah, but as far as, sharing things between, we implemented separate Primo, so you can't right now search everybody's catalog at once. If you wanted to, like you can in the way Primo set up in the Alliance, it's one giant Primo index, which has its pluses and minuses.
Could there be a scope?
Well, it would be, it's something we could implement if we wanted to pay for it. It would be like it would sort of be the next step. It would be another implementation project where we would combine Primo indexes into one index, and then have what's called a network zone, and that gets into a lot. I mean, the network zone is like they're hiring a full-time person out at the Alliance just to manage the network zone. So the network zone is a big deal. I don't know if there's an in-between step where
you could just say, put everybody's search results into the scope.
Yeah, and then of course, if you get into the the resource sharing business where you're running couriers and managing all that, that could be, it could be good. It could be, if it's, it's going to be up to the council and the board over time to determine what directions to go from here. My personal feeling is that, I don't think more and more, less and less people have the patience for getting physical materials from other libraries couriered like that, and then you get it and it's due 2 weeks later, so you don't really get to use it the way you want it. So I don't know. And then electronic resources have their own issues with sharing because they're licensed to specific institutions. In Seattle, like Seattle they have even within the same institution, they have libraries that have different access because you pay it. So
at one point we looked into what it would cost to license all of our existing electronic resources for all 3 institutions, and it was an increase of $40,000 a year.
Wow.
But as Kate pointed out, we could cooperatively buy things, and even and everybody activate them in their own thing. And if it's like I don't know much about it. There is a community zone for electronic collection. So if like the consortium bought a one-off collection, like one of these EBSCO ebook collections, you can create, if you have to go through a process with Ex Libris, but you can get like a community zone kind of electronic collection established, so then people could activate it. So everybody wouldn't have to create a local collection separately, it would just be activated. And I don't know, I don't know if we're buying any electronic resources like that now.
I used to work for a public library in the state a long time ago, and of course, there's always a state like Will Stuvinga does those, if you know who he is, he does those state contract things. I don't know if our schools buy off that contract. I mean, and we're activating. I mean, like is it ProQuest right now that's the current holds the state contract? And do those things, are those collections clean in the community zone, or are there collections that reflect what we're buying, like off that state contract, so they're easy to activate?
Almost all of it. There are some things in the package that are in either PCI or the community zone.
Yeah. So I mean, I suspect near term after cohort 3 goes live. I mean, we've got the merge C1, C2 call now. After go live for cohort 3, we'll start breaking out the calls into functional areas, even if they're not formal working groups. So, I mean, and there's nothing stopping us from doing that now. I mean, part of the great things about this kind of event is you get to know people. And I mean, there's nothing stopping, I mean, and you guys do, I know Laura can call Jennifer over Green River and get together. They do that up, Wacom and Bellingham are close together. There are places that are, or that's, Leslie, do you know?
Well, in addition to the calls, I think it would be lovely to have like a weekly or monthly demo where, if you get on Blackboard, or I guess it won't be Blackboard, whoever the new vendor is for our conferencing, so we could have like we're going to show you how we do this demonstration, and the experts in areas can share. I think that more than the calls are great too, because we could get into discussion, but just like a literal, like, watch me click around Alma and show you how this is done would be really nice.
Yeah, ideally, ideally the calls that we have right now would have more of an agenda, but I honestly haven't.
Well, we're not there.
We're still in implementation, Oh, and speaking of which, it's sort of a non sequitur. It's a little bit related. I did send around on our internal Alma list an announcement about, Ex Libris is always doing webinars. I mean, there's always all kinds of live events going on you can follow, or there's always recording, but there's one that might be of interest, May 26th, and I'm sure there'll be a recording, so you don't have to attend it live, but it's about physical rollover. Everybody's fiscal year is coming up, right? And it's not that big of a deal to do physical rollover in Alma. I don't know if it was something you guys did in Voyager. It's just rolling over your ledgers, and there are a couple of options, like you can roll over and allocate the same amount to the ledger, to the accounts that you did the previous year, or you can set a percentage, like a standard percentage increase for all of them, that kind of thing. And then you roll over the subscription POs.
Do you think it will be recorded?
Yeah, okay. Sure. And there is.
Where do I find it? I'm sorry.
I think it's on the knowledge site under training. Or a lot of times it's like, maybe you guys do this too, but if you just search Google for Ex Libris webinar, oftentimes you can it's uncanny. It's a little unnerving sometimes how Google is so much more accurate than and like searching a site. The Knowledge Center search is not as good as the way Google indexes it, right? Because Google's sort of full text search. It's sort of that.
So you don't think it'll be password protected or anything? It will be open?
No, yeah. The nice thing about the Knowledge Center these days is, in the early days they had it password protected. It was a real pain, but I guess they're not worried about competition anymore or something. So it's just, or customers just complain. It's just you can find anything. Well, you can't necessarily find it, but it's out there, and it's not password protected.
It's there though.
So it's 11:20. Guess we can let you guys go and get out here.
Laura, we're going to be experimenting with using demerits for reserves. we're.
Oh, yeah,
Part of my trying to lessen the load on my frontline staff is trying to simplify a lot of our circulation policies. And we just, with fines and reserves, it turns into this constant battle. So what we're gonna try, and we're gonna start testing it in the next week or two in our test environment, is we're going to, for any overdue reserve, the student will get a demerit that blocks their patron record from any other checkout. And I'll report how that works.
Thank you. We are really looking for something like that because we have a fair amount of people abusing the reserve system. And we want something that won't involve the business office with a lot of $1 and $2 fines, but we'll get materials back.
Yeah, that's our hope. And we won't know the real world effect until July. My hope is that, and the nice thing about, or the thing that I'm thinking will be nice about using the block is, the block is taken care of by the system.
Yes.
So my search staff can say, I'm sorry, look, this is out of my hands. This is something that the computer system does. If you want to be able to use this, you need to bring stuff back.
So that's interesting. That sounds almost like a newer feature. I mean, there are things that stuff that went into the product after Alliance implementation. Sometimes I'm not aware of but that sounds like something that might be another one that Skagit was looking at. They're in cohort 3. They're implementing. I mean, they keyed in on this registration fee, which I never thought, or I didn't know was in. It's not something I thought about, but you can, like when you create a new community, like a new user of a specific user group, like we call community or whatever, it can assess like a fee, like a member fee for a non-affiliated person to use the library. But that's something to play with. It sounds sort of like, it's opposite. It's not a demerit, but it's another thing that I'm always learning new stuff about. All right, any last questions or thoughts? Well, I hope you enjoy CLAMS. I don't know what goes on at CLAMS or what kinds of things happen.
We have a big party.
Yeah. Is it sort of, it's teaching librarians, it's a lot of
I only have
events.
The technical pre-seminars.
Yeah.
It really varies. Sometimes we look at cool things, new things we're doing in our library. Sometimes it's really technical based. It varies from year to year and who wants to talk.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, everyone.